Hello, our truth warriors, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Atlantic Underground. Today, we have one of my favorites, Lava, on with us. She is probably one of the best financial and geopolitical minds in the business. And if you haven't found her channel on YouTube, which is called Lava, and would it be right in saying that that's what people should search for there for that?
Yes, thank you kindly.
Yeah. And what people need to do with this, it's called Lava, and the beauty is it's perfectly timed. When you get up in the morning, you're going to find this in your YouTube channel once you've subscribed to it. You're going to be able to get a cup of coffee and sit down and press play. And by the time you finish that cup of coffee, you're going to be so well informed for the rest of the day that you're going to thank us later. And believe me, the information that she puts out is absolutely incredible. So without further ado, I'll introduce Lava to you today, and we're going to get talking about some very serious, very important topics that are shaping not only the world today, but your future moving forward. Lava, it's fantastic to have you back. How are you?
I'm well, thank you very kindly. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's such an honor. Thank you so much.
No, no, we have quite a tight-knit team now, don't we? We get to talk through the week. We get to talk on the channel on a Wednesday. First of all, people watching this may be very interested in joining our talks on a Wednesday afternoon or evening or wherever you are in the world. Do you want to briefly tell people where they can catch me, you, the likes of Greg Manarino, and everyone else coming together, all these brilliant minds to talk on a Wednesday? Because I think people may want to join us as well.
Yes, so there's a lot of wonderful minds there. It's on Discord. It's on Wednesday. If you're in New York time is how we do this. Wednesday, New York time, about 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, the United States. Open, feel free to join us. And if you would like to come in, we're doing kind of invites. So leave a comment in Chris's video down below and we'll get you that link. We'll invite you and get you in because I really think you'll enjoy some of the chats that we have there. A lot of good material and background that we'll get to go in with this.
And that's it. And the beauty of it is many of you out there have a lot to say and a lot of information and don't have a platform to share it on. Come and join us. Your voice will be heard. You'll get to have your say. You'll get to talk and you'll get to join in the conversation with some fantastic people out there. As I say, some brilliant minds turn up for this. And don't miss out. Put your name, put the information in. We'll get the links out as well. We'll try and get them onto the bottom of these interviews. But yeah, put a comment in the bottom of this interview and we'll make sure that you're invited. So today I want to start off with the importance of one thing. It's Greg's ethos, it's your ethos, and it's my ethos. And that is the importance of paying it forward. It's been a consistent message by a few of us now for quite many years. What can you tell people about the importance of paying it forward?
All right, this is the very essence of life. I mean, we're not here just for ourselves, but the energy spreads. And when you do this, it comes back, tenfold. So we could say I do it for a selfish reason, because really the more people that I'm able to help and take these opportunities, it does come back to you. But really what it is just building these communities, if you will, do something, no matter how small, for something else. It can be life-changing, truly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way the energy works in the world, if you go out, help somebody, even if you're donating to a charity, go down to the local dog's home, go down to the local orphanage, whatever you can do. If you've got elderly neighbors that you see them struggling, they're not getting the lawn due, go out and mow the lawn for them. Whatever it is you need to do to help people around you, do it. And believe me, the benefits inside your soul will feel so much better, and the universe will recognize this. And paying it forward brings an abundance of incredible things into your life. If you haven't tried it, go out and try it. Believe me, this really does work. Now, today, what I'd like to start off with, we've had quite clearly a very large disaster in the US hitting a hurricane that has ripped through all the way up from Florida, causing major damage up in North Carolina. Within North Carolina right now, we're seeing some very disturbing things. People are already being offered prices on their land by the likes of BlackRock and other investors that want to come in and buy this land up on the cheap. But that's not the only reason why they want to do that. Can you tell us what you think is going on up there and why these big monopolized corporations are trying to buy land up in this area?
There is an additional interest here, and I'm actually a little surprised. It has gotten a little bit of media coverage, although not a lot. Basically, there's a couple of mines in the area. The first of is there is some lithium mining in the area, which is critical for the basically trace minerals for, as you know, EV batteries and all of this moving forward. But one of the other kind of less known is some of the purest quartz in the world, purest quartz mine is in that area, directly in that area. And this is critical for all of the microchips, the wafers that they use. So this is huge for everything going forward, everything artificial intelligence, all of the basically NVIDIA, all of these things that you've seen moving forward. So it's very important.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, it's just a coincidence, of course, that they would be there buying all this up straight away. But the funny thing is, for those people that recently saw the new Twisters movie, um, it's like watching it in real life. You know, we've got these Twisters in this movie that have gone through and destroyed people's homes and towns. And part of the research crew going out chasing them are there working for a huge conglomerate that are wanting to buy up land. And I found it very strange that this mirrors it in that way. Do we see future problems again for people that live in this area in regards to home insurance? Are we going to see a big issue with house prices dropping in that area because people are going to live in fear of living in something that may come back again in the future?
No, ironically, I expect that we are going to see higher home prices. Now, there's a couple of things that you just mentioned in play. First off, I would like to mention, very first off, is that my prayers go out to these people because we still don't even know the actual number of casualties. It took out all of the major roads to this area, so they're having to use helicopters to get supplies into these people, even water. Ironically, they flooded out a lot of these areas, massive amounts of damage. And so we're going to see higher prices here, not just because of the insurance. This was, they're saying, an event in 100 years, event of the century, not built for it. This is not normal. Now, I have further thoughts, kind of deep thoughts on this storm that was kind of built coming through here, if you will. But as all of these homes are destroyed, we're watching inflation, not just with materials, but also with the labor. They're all pushing as we're seeing these strikes go on and whatnot. Now we've got the cash buyers trying to rush in here, purchasing this land or properties and kind of pushing out the local people. So you're not seeing, if it was a real market where you're seeing local people have to purchase and rebuild, it could have a pressure on the prices. But given the current environment and everything around, I expect it's going to be very expensive and the insurance cost will not go down for sure. There is also a federal emergency management flooding insurance. It looks like they're not going to qualify for any of that. So all of this is going to be with the small guy, so to speak. And that's the tragedy of this, not just watching all of this wiped away, but the insurance companies, for the most part, going to fight it to where people can't, and they also don't qualify for this other aid. And then we had, administration come in, meaning our president coming in saying, "Oh yeah, we'll give you $700. You just lost your house, you lost everything. I got billions for Ukraine and the war, but sorry about that. We'll give you $700. You'll be fine." So there's that.
Ridiculous. And I also saw them, the National Guard of Tennessee shipping out literally 2 days after this has happened. and going over to I don't know whether it was Dubai or one of the Middle East countries to do some kind of testing or training and whatever. Extremely bad timing in regards to them leaving. I don't think they should have left, and whether that's also part and parcel of what's going on here. But one of the things that has kind of struck me as bad timing has been the fact that the dockyards throughout the US, on certainly on that eastern board there, are now going on strike. I mean, is this a multi-pronged attack? Is it purposeful to what's gone on, or coincidence and bad timing? Or is it also, as I've looked into, a very possible and deliberate attempt to cover up that China are also restricting goods coming into the country, citing something behind what they call a container shortage? It seems to be a multi-pronged attack, which is just hurting the people more and more. What are your views on what's going on with this?
I think there could be something deeper to this by looking at we've been running, trade deficits for some time, but in specific with China, they've got going on basically reverse sanctions. And this is because of everything, of course, that the United States has been doing, the escalation of Taiwan, going on with the chips and everything with Huawei. So between all of this, I don't know for certain if there's something specifically what it would be, but it does seem awfully suspicious. I know it is partially with a contract end, but as they say, never let a good crisis go to waste. I think it's probably a case of that where they're just letting this escalate because depending on how they handle this and coming forward, they're going to use it to their agenda. So whether it was just unfortunately mistimed, that could be a part of it. It's definitely going to play a part. But I do watch shipping, and there is quite a disparity there that is now being covered. So we're in day 3. We've got ships out that are just decided to drop anchor, and they're going to wait this out. So, but China on the back end is saying, well, we'll just wait this out too, because they've got automation in their shipping, and their docks, they're not going to suffer as much as we will from this.
Yeah. And is there a way of tracking this through something like the Baltic Dry Index to get an indication of how the shipping traffic is going back and forth, and whether we're seeing a massive reduction in that shipping line delivering goods all around the world? Is that a key indicator, or is there a better thing to take a look at?
Well, no, the Baltic Dry Index is a good indicator. I watch that for the goods that are trading, but that's not for the physical, like the port backups.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things we try to watch, like how much is moving through those ports. But another thing to mention is the larger thing that is going to happen is that's our exports also. And a large part of what we're exporting is meat and vegetables. And so that's going to hurt because those don't last. Those
No,
don't last.
that's
So
it.
speaking bananas coming in, meat and vegetables going out, those are the larger things that are immediate.
And the knock-on effect again with the port strikes as well, the amount of goods that are imported for the continuance of industry as well. We're going to see. We saw a problem with the pandemic a while back, where we had shortage of so many goods. I remember a lot of the new car manufacturers weren't able to get the semiconductor chips that were required for the electronic modules within the vehicles. And to the point where vehicles were being delivered to car dealerships, and the car dealerships were having to just park them up and leave them because they couldn't sell them. And then the fix for this was when the parts came available, that they would be shipped to the dealerships, and the mechanics in the workshop then had to fit these parts to the cars so the cars were operating properly. And it's very likely that with these strikes and the problems that we're seeing now, that this could really cause a big problem for many industries, not just within the US, but also around the world, because they're not able to get what they require. It could be anything from manufacturing to construction requiring steel and many other things like that. But this has the potential to put a lot of people out of work and a lot of people out of business right now, doesn't it?
Correct. And you just hit a key point with a couple of things. The first off is that yes, this is a port strike in the United States, but it's going to affect globally, definitely. So as this kind of lockup happens in this area, I mean, United States is so large with their trade. The other part of that is, as you had mentioned, the last time we saw something like this back during the, as you say, the pandemic. Hopefully that doesn't get this marked, but at that period of time, there were a lot of other similar situations going on. And they trained us in this new language to accept all of these things we speak about daily, like supply chain disruptions. And so that's something that's going to be coming back out. We're going to see this again. Last time, everything from appliances to, as you're seeing, vehicles, across the board, basically,
Yeah.
that we're going to see that globally.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of people don't realize as well, they think they see this and they think it's a dispute over wages or terms and conditions within employment for the people in the dockyards. But this is bigger than this. This is union driven. And for me, over the years, when I've looked into the unions and especially unions of dockyards, the people that own and control the unions that can literally stop a dockyard and get everyone off from working there straight away. These unions are literally, how would we put it, crime syndicates running them,
Yes,
which means these crime syndicates are also under the control of the very system that controls everything else around the world. Because this isn't about wages for the man that works there. This is about being able to have massive impact into systems such as this, which means,
yes.
regardless of them being crime syndicates that are operating these unions, that means that the very crime syndicates are also controlled by higher groups of people. Have you seen this going on yourself as well?
Oh, yes. And historically, so at the risk of calling them, crime syndicates, but we all know who had control of this. And historically, um, back during World War II, there wasn't enough manpower. So the US government actually asked these particular crime syndicates to control and moderate the docks.
Yeah,
So they were utilized at that point in time as kind of a de facto type of control. So they have quite a bit of control in this, and that's really what it's all about. Every time you're in these unions, I mean, you have to pay into it. You don't have a lot of choice about it, but basically it's collective manpower, and that's why they talk about the collective bargaining. So it's not about raising the wages because it's multiples higher. Aside from that, people that are arguing the rise in wages, this is all going to be passed on. Those higher wages go into the products that they're delivering, gets passed on to the companies, and the companies are not going to eat this. They're
yeah,
going to pass it on via inflation. So prices and all of these things are going to go higher, you
yeah.
know.
And there's nothing like sticking the fox in the hen house. And that's exactly what's happened right there. Now, let's move on to another major thing that's going on. It's being underreported. I don't think people realize how serious the situation is. And that's the escalating war stemming from the Middle East there with Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, and also, of course, one of the major powerhouses, Iran. Russia have now turned round to Benjamin Netanyahu and said that he has to stop attacking Lebanon. The whole area is becoming very unstable in regards to what's moving forward with war. But what is also happening is Israel. I was watching footage of Tel Aviv yesterday and the beauty is everyone's got the phone in the hand. They're able to record stuff and upload it onto media. And I keep seeing the absolute destruction of Tel Aviv and Israel, where these missiles are coming in, raining in like absolute fire. The Iron Dome protective system doesn't appear to be working, but the mainstream media are telling you everything's okay. Everything's good, nothing's going on bad there. Uh, what do you see going on over there right now? Because I don't think things are as reported and as rosy as people think out there. This is massively a problem, and the knock-on effect of literally more illegal migrants flooding into Europe, UK, Canada, and the US is very prevalent right now from the displacement of people who are being attacked right throughout this region. What are your thoughts on this?
It's there's so much. It's so sad. I mean, I'm not there. I've not been there, but from everything that I can find, as you say, like everybody's got phones. So we do have a little bit more on the inside. I know that militarily, the strike that you're speaking of, Israel had a really difficult time fending that off. Apparently, the truth is that we've got a couple of destroyers there parked not too far off, and while Iron Dome is quite the thing to fend this off, it took both of those destroyers to kind of basically help them fend off that attack. Iran is not happy about this, and but they're actually very level about their retaliation. And so they've come out and said, okay, we've done our strikes back and we're done unless you do it again.
Yeah,
And then we're going to hit you harder. They have escalated in the weaponry they're using. And all of this is the larger distraction part, because why is this all going on in the first place? You look behind it. Look behind what's going on. When you're talking about Bibi, and I'm not going to take either side on this, but basically tons of money being flooded into this war economy, and who's making off from the back of it? It's not a land war dispute as much as you would think. There's
yeah,
some other things going on as far as how they're going to open up the trade and what they want to happen so that this can move forward. So just terrible, all of the innocent people that are getting caught in that crossfire, and it's not being really considered, really.
yeah. And that's it.
So
As I said before, the knock-on effect of this, the ripples, the waves that are going to come from this are going to see again, major destabilization through Europe and the
mm,
UK with the flood of people being displaced again from war. But, I look at this, and this all started off supposedly with Hamas breaking into the most fortified country in the world, literally walking in and attacking it, which to me, I think is possibly a false flag again. But at the end of the day, the battle then, if we're going based on the face value that Hamas did this, should have been against Hamas and into Palestine. But this has spread. We're seeing attacks in Yemen, we're seeing attacks in Lebanon, we're seeing attacks in Iran. Um, it's spreading into so many countries around that region. Is
mhm.
this something that was required, or is this just part of the plan moving forward with the agendas and goals that they wish to attain in regards to dominating that region?
No, with that, there's a definite segregation, and that's kind of the larger picture. We see a lot of this separation and a lot of it financially. When you boil down to it, we've got a few crossovers, but the big thing is talking about NATO, talking about BRICS versus NATO now. And when you watch the currencies underneath, the whole funny thing about this is behind all of this, and they're talking about all of this war and the bombing, they're still trading in the background. They've
Yeah,
still got a lot of things going on that is you're never going to see in the mainstream media. Where do we still get the large number of like pistachios or some of these other products that come out of that area and the land that they cross over? We've still got cross for the oil, the gas for Europe. They're going to freeze this winter if Russia decides to crank it off. Now they're not going to. They'll just pay more for it. But it's this whole mess of like children arguing in the courtyard, but they're using this towards what they want to do as far as moving the money back and forth, setting up these alliances, and then getting everything together, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, to this one. Basically, we're going to one currency, one government. So,
absolutely. And we can't not mention the Ukraine. I mean, it's almost like that has disappeared, not even talked about right now. Again, is this a deliberate tactic from the media and the people that have been involved with this to kind of put this on the back burner and let people forget about it for a bit? It was in every single news feed every day for so long. It's not like the war has stopped, but do you think the Ukraine were losing that battle to such an extent that maybe it's a good idea to distract to something else? Because I know that Russia, it's almost like they're getting fed up with NATO knocking on the door and everybody supplying the Ukraine with weapons to attack Russia. And Russia have quite clearly turned around and said that there's a possibility that this could turn nuclear. What could be the knock-on effect and the problems that would continue should that happen?
If Russia goes nuclear,
Hmm.
so they've said Vladimir Putin has been very clear about this, and this whole thing escalated basically because he didn't want NATO on the front doorstep, and you can't really blame him for that.
No.
But I mean, there would be serious implications with this. But the point is that he understands this, he knows this, but he's basically telling them if they allow long strikes into Russia, he's gonna protect himself. And I mean, where are we gonna go with this? I don't think they would allow it to go that far. We'll see. I have no idea on that, but I mean, that would be crazy. And still at the same time, we've got a lot of the other things that economically, Ukraine has so much grain that they're basically importing into Europe. That's hurting them financially. All
Yeah.
of the local farmers, it's basically putting them out because they're paying this higher price for this green energy, trying to go outside of it, and they're getting quashed out.
Yeah.
So,
And that's it. We did briefly chat yesterday about the potential of widespread famine around the world.
mm,
But again, these seem to be tools that are in the toolbox of the very establishments that are pushing these agendas forward in what they wish to achieve. And I've never, ever been able to get out of my mind, they may not be standing now, but the fact that the Georgia Guidestones said to maintain the population of the planet to 500 million. Considering we've got around 8.5 billion people on the planet, that's a massive amount of loss of life. And again, the speculation and conspiracies about who built and put those Georgia Guidestones in place. But then when we turn our attention to the very agendas of the United Nations and sustainable development on what their goals are, as well as the World Economic Forum and the fact that they have now infiltrated every single government around the world, putting their young global leaders in.
yes.
Um, is this a machine that can't be stopped? Is this what they really want to achieve? I mean, you look at Bill Gates, his father, you look at all these people that are involved at high levels and billionaires, kings and queens that really would like to depopulate the planet. We've been called everything from a virus on the earth. And, I do look at what they say and I kind of understand some of what they're saying. But at the end of the day, is this mass depopulation of the planet that a lot of these, we can only call them psychopaths, want? Is this something that's required for the sustainable development goals, do you think?
Well, if you ask them, yes. Now, I mean, understanding these are elitists. They're not us. They're above us. Just ask them; they'll tell you. And so we're something that needs to be controlled, as you're saying, more like they need to do a culling, and there is a report that was put out, and this is a group subsect of the United States military. They did a study, and it's called the Deagle reports.
That's
And
right.
so the Deagle reports kind of line itemed out per country the number of population that it needed to come down by that they wanted. And this was by 2025. They didn't say how, but it's large numbers of each country. So it's not just one particular area either. But they've got this, basically, they've already line itemed out like how many people must disappear, so to speak, so that they can have things in a comfortable manner, because I'm pretty sure there's not a number of elites that they're going to look at eliminating.
Yeah.
So they can drive their jets and everything else because you're driving your vehicle too much, or you got a car that's, flatulating too much. So it's absolutely ridiculous. Can we stop it? I think so. I think there's still hope, there's still faith. That's why I'm out here. That's why you're out here. The more people we can get, that we need to wake up, basically, is what we're all about. And even just a few more people, that's all it takes. Just keep getting it out there, whether it's, they want us to go, whether it's nuclear, whether it's mosquitoes carrying something awful, whether it's the latest virus they've got out, which is a hemorrhagic fever that's going to cause fear, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, clearly a plan in place.
That's it. And I do believe that if the elites are so invested in this and these people want to prove that it works, I've got no problem with them all leading by example. This is what they wish to do. Now, let's talk metals. We're both very big advocates for people protecting their wealth and hedging against the very system which has been hijacked within the financial system. Silver is currently holding above 30 US dollars per ounce. Is this an indicator that we possibly may see a pullback, or is it now sat there for such a period of time that it's possibly going to climb even further? We're seeing gold starting to hike this week. What reasons do you see behind this? And are we going to see a push forward as people are starting to put their assets into, as I call it, a far safer class? What are your thoughts here?
So with metals, I'll take silver first specifically. And I'm so glad you brought this up. Thank you, because this is a really good hedge. Physical metals, hold them in your hand, not ETFs. Don't trust somebody else to hold your assets unless it's somebody you really, really trust. But we've got silver, and nobody knows for sure. Things can do whatever they want to. This is not financial advice, but it's kind of been consolidating. And what I'm seeing, like basically what it looks like, the consolidation, as long as it stays above that 30 level, it's kind of bouncing between 30 and 32. If it breaks out of that range, it could very easily squeeze much higher. We're talking probably $40 next basic target, and then probably bounce it around, come down. And if it confirms above that level, then we're looking north of closer to 50 for silver. And that's probably nothing price-wise means anything other than target time. So probably early next year, early 2025, put a price target. By the end of this year, I would say probably 35, 40, we're coming up on it pretty quickly. Yeah. We've also got, this is also the price of silver, as you say, well, right now it's between 30 and 32 in US dollars. If you reprice it in something else, you'll get a different price. And the reason is it's showing inflation. So inflation will continue for sure. And as inflation continues, the prices, or as you say, quote unquote, value in US dollars will also increase. Now we're watching gold do this. Gold is hitting about 2,600 is resistance. We'll watch it kind of bounce around at that is kind of what I expect, but then higher for gold as well. I've heard targets of 3,000. I don't think by the year end, I mean, again, I don't know for sure, but 3,000 in the long run. Silver, 50, 40, 45 to 50, probably early next year if this continues.
And that's it. We get a lot of people writing to me and messaging me. They for years now, people have been asking, well, I don't know where to buy silver. I don't know where to buy gold. Who can I trust? Where can I go? And, there are small places within every town that you can go to. We partnered up with Andy Schectman at Miles Franklin, and if people want to buy directly for them, I can personally guarantee that the service that you're going to get there is fantastic. I'll put again a link into the description there for anybody now that wants to get into silver and gold. I think it's the perfect time to get into it, because what I'm seeing moving forward is, especially within the US, both the nominees to be elected for president are both pushing a trickle-down economic system. And also with this, that trade system that they're looking to help with the trickle down economics, it doesn't mean me and you are going to get the money. It means that the big multinational corporations are going to benefit and their profits are going to increase. But to do this, they have to decrease the value of the dollar. And the decrease
Right.
in value of the dollar is weakening that currency. If people invest into silver and gold right now, that means that they are locking in the value of their currency today. And what will happen, we'll see the increase in silver and gold moving forward, meaning not only will they profit from their investment, this is a safe haven to protect the wealth that you have today for the future, because everything's going to get devalued. The cost of living is going to get higher. The cost of food is going to get higher. Would you recommend that people start positioning themselves today before it gets to a point of no return?
Absolutely. If you haven't started yet, first off, to make sure that you're stable with what you have, and that means food, water, your emergency stuff. But if you can't afford a lot, because what I hear a lot is I can't afford gold now that it's 2,500, 2,600. I
Yeah.
understand that, but start with silver. Buy one piece if you can. 30 dollars or whatever it is. It is going to eventually go higher. Could it go lower? Yes, that's an opportunity to buy the dip. This
Yeah.
is something that over the centuries, there have been so many currencies. They've all come and gone and become worthless. There's not one currency that has stayed and held value, but through all that time, gold and silver have maintained value. So while I don't look at them so much as you're going to make profit of it, you can. And gold has performed very well this past year, but it's kind of more to me a marker of inflation. And you hold your wealth, because if you held a pile of cash, doesn't matter what currency it is, it's worth a lot less than your gold coin or silver coin that you had, you know. So definitely. And
No, that's it. And people out there that would rather go and spend $30 on a case of beer, listen to
right.
listen to what I've got to say here. If you invest in silver now, your $30 that you put into silver, that $30 may buy you a case of beer today. But maybe in a year and a half, 2 years' time, that investment that you made into silver will buy you maybe 5 to 10 cases of beer. Now, doesn't that sound appealing to those that would rather drink beer than invest into metals? Now, one thing people don't know as well with Lava is she doesn't just look at what's going on online and see what's going on. If she sees a problem in the world and she doesn't think that she's getting the right answers and the truth, she'll actually go and visit somewhere and find out what's going on. And recently she took a trip to Japan. I've got a question about Japan. I mean, this is something I'm not aware of, and I see things going on, but you're very much more well informed to that. What is Japan's carry trade, and how is their economy currently?
So the carry trade, it's been getting a little bit more press lately. Basically, it's just because the difference in valuations between the Japanese yen and whatever currency it is, for the most part, the US dollar. Now, people have been trading that because there have been a big discrepancy. The problem is people have purchased leveraged, they've used this to purchase leveraged products, basically like loans, because they could get them on the cheap. And now it's beginning to unwind the other way. Well, this could really hurt the United States economy because they are the largest holder of US debt. The treasuries is Japan. So small country, not much for military, but holding that debt is a weapon like you wouldn't believe, because the debt bubble that we've got in the United States is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
They can actually affect that, as we've seen now twice. They've done a little bit of unwinding. Now, what happened recently is we've watched a shift. They've got a new person in charge now because the last administration didn't play along the way that they wanted to. They were going to strengthen the yen, basically, which would hurt the trades for the United States dollar and take care of their people, crush their inflation down a bit. Well, since they didn't play along, all of a sudden the administration has all of these issues coming up about corruption and everything else. So basically got replaced. We've got someone else in now as of a couple of days ago, and they have pledged to basically play along.
Yeah.
So that's kind of taken that fear of that off of the market, so to speak, that Ueda, who is the head of their central bank, will not be hiking. If the United States continues to cut, they won't need to because it will still have the same effect. If we basically weaken our currency enough, then theirs will float in relative strength. So then they won't have to, but still, it's a huge deal to have this issue to where they can actually affect the values of not just the whole stock market across and cause that panic.
Yeah.
So.
No. Well, that's it. That's something for people to keep an eye on. But I mean, are we being played a massive game when you consider Japan and pretty much every country around the world is controlled by a central bank, and the central bank controls the government in regards to what they do by financial means, right the way down to every individual that has a bank account with one of the main banks as well. But, the central banks around the world are all controlled by the central bank of central banks, which is the Bank of International Settlements. Are countries around the world acting independently of their own free will? Or is this just one big game where it's like a chess game where, unfortunately, the Bank of International Settlements control both sides of the game?
The BIS is in control. These countries are not acting on their own any more than they are not collaborating, is what they always tell us. The central banks are not collaborating, they're working on their own. And they just happen to come out and do the same thing. It's ridiculous. So, and people don't see this. I don't know how. But the banks between themselves, the Bank of International Settlements, they don't trade amongst themselves in the currency that they give us to trade in. They trade in, like, they use like special drawing rates, SDRs.
Yeah.
And they are changing their system. They've changed it in the back end of how they settle these, basically the accounting methods that they use. And by changing these, they're really going to put out this massive control that we're looking at. Central bank digital currencies, what the people are going to, what they're going to give the local people, and that can be fully programmable. So they can tell you to spend it within a certain area. If they don't like what I'm doing, then they can make all of my money only good in United States in a small area, and I wouldn't be able to travel, which would be awful. But they have this control of not just the amounts, but locations, geolocation. They've been discussing this, and people have to understand that's coming forward. And the other thing that I would like to start getting out is people are so focused on CBDC. You call it CBDC, they'll say no. But if you call it a stable coin that now we've gotten, it's been working, it sounds great. Yeah. And that's where we've got the second danger is the language that they're using, because they've got the people funneled one way, and they're going to basically kind of pull the rug out from underneath and do it all at once. And that's what's going on. All of the central banks, they are in sync, and it's only going to take one move. Right now they're saying, oh, Russia, China is outside BRICS, and then Western banks. It would take one move and they'll be aligned.
Yeah, and these special drawing rights allow the governments of the countries to be able to loan massive amounts from the central banks themselves under the careful watching eye of the Bank of International Settlements. But this again is a double-edged sword, because it appears to me that these countries are taking full benefit of taking the money to put into infrastructure or corrupt politicians' pockets, whichever way you want to see it. But at the end of the day, it appears a mechanism to grab the resources of these countries, whether they're rich in lithium, gold, food, any commodity that you can think of, oil. And it appears that the very system allows the infiltration of these countries at that point to have their corporations snap up and buy these natural resources of these countries, meaning that the Bank of International Settlement is ultimately trying to take control of every single resource around the world. And in my eyes, that can't be good for humanity. What do you think?
I agreed 100%. So, and this is such a major trick that they've pulled. They have managed to put all of these countries they're speaking about, all of the critical commodities or resources that they have, using debt. And how does this debt come about? Saying that they are going to loan this to them, this product that they make up, and then they are indebted or owe their commodities or whatever it might be. And this is something, that was started a long time ago. They loan it out for the infrastructure for the ports. And now China has kind of come on to this as well. They've got the Belt and Road Initiative. It doesn't matter what you call it. Basically, it's coming the same thing. We'll loan you this. Then when you can't pay it back because we're raising rates on something that we made up out of thin air,
Yeah.
they come and take it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, we interviewed Michael Yon a couple of weeks, well, probably about 3 weeks ago now. People haven't seen that interview, and you're not aware of what this Belt and Road Initiative is and how impactful and how enormous this is. This is China right now making a play to control the trade routes globally around
Yes.
the world. Now, when we consider what we just discussed about the Bank of International Settlements being able to own through all the monopoly of the corporations, and those that are aware of how BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and all these companies now are controlling the monopolies of these corporations, this all filters right back to the Bank of International Settlements. Now, it almost looks like they are pushing for the digital currency coming out of China, and that to be the main controlling factor for the BRICS. But this
Yes.
initiative is a strategic positioning now for them to have the distribution ability of putting this road system right throughout the world. And I don't think people realize we're looking at World War III right now with what's going on. But China are going to literally march through your backyard under the guise of a convenient delivery system and a mechanism to be able to control the goods and services around the world with what they wish to do. And this isn't something that they're thinking and planning. This is something that's going on right ahead, right now. We're seeing stuff that they're literally taking it from the Panama Canal. They're starting to build roads, infrastructure, and bridges right through what they call the Darien Gap to link right up with Colombia. Then this will head right through Mexico, link right up through the US, take it right the way through to Alaska. They're going to start controlling, if they already don't own, the ports around the world. But this is a system that's going to come right the way through from Asia, through into Europe, right the way through the UK. And it's going to be a whole linked up system, not only circumventing the world from left to right, it's going to go from top to bottom as well. And this is part and parcel with them getting themselves in position now to be a major superpower. But this all pushes right back again to the control mechanism, the banking system, and the Bank of International Settlements. Now, Lava did mention a few minutes ago that this control mechanism is one which is the ability to saddle all these countries with massive amounts of debt. And the debt bubbles around the world now are so enormous that they are literally weaponized. And they're weaponized purposely to pop that bubble and allow the very wealth transfer of everything that the middle class owns to then transfer to the ultra wealthy, just creating a massive gap between those that we consider to be the elites and then the poor. It's going to look like the 1930s again when we had the Great Depression, but on steroids. And this bubble is primed to pop at any time. This again is another tool in their toolbox to bring humanity down and have absolute control over us. Do you think that the bubble will pop in regards to a financial collapse? Or are we looking at more of a credit locking up system where people will just not be able to get their money anymore and it will become worthless? And the only option is the offering of a credit-based system based upon personal assets that each individual owns. Meaning, if you own a home, a car, a refrigerator, a phone, the clothes on your back will be assessed to the point that you will be given so many credits within this new digital system based on what you have, allowing you to live moving forward. Is this really what we're facing, or are we going to go through a traditional crash of the system like we've seen many times before? Or is this a whole new thing that people are not expecting?
Not sure yet, but I think you did a really good explanation just now in the most likely scenario because we're moving towards tokenization. And what that tokenization means is that everything will be accounted for 100%. And once they get it on there, it's going to be accounted for the remainder of basically the life of whatever that asset is, whether it's vehicle, whether it's a property, whether it's a person. It's going to eventually be people. They are expanding this now. They were very successful. I spoke about this morning about the US treasuries. They've tokenized these, they're trading them. Now they're expanding to bonds. Then they'll be expanding to other assets, which will mean properties will probably be one of the first physical. I think that they will draw onto the trading room basically for this. And moving forward, so then they can tax everything they want to, unrealized gains, whatever they decide, wipe it out, revalue, whatever it is. So even though they're going to do this, this will equate the crash that you are also talking about, where there will be so many people with nothing. There are going to be a lot of people that don't make it through this.
Yeah.
They won't make it through this. They're going to starve to death. It's grim. It's pretty grim. There's ways around it for people that start preparing now. That's why we're out here trying to get people to prepare as much as they can, because you can't save everybody. And it's any way you cut it. You ask any economist moving forward, they may have different time periods, but everyone I've heard from agrees this is in the works. We've got some rough time ahead. When it hits, there's little discrepancy, but very definitely.
Yeah. And the thing is, as well, I think what people don't realize is this central bank digital currency that's clearly coming into place, tokenized, however they want to frame it, call it, or name it. This is a system that isn't going to require banks anymore. This is a system that means that all the banks that people are using today, whether they're with Bank of America, Toronto Dominion, Bank of Canada, NatWest in England, Deutsche Bank, all the banks around the world, they're only going to need a handful of banks to manage this on their behalf. What do you think is going to happen to the rest of the banks around the world where people have the money now? And where's that money going to go?
Well, money is created in trash anyway. And by money, I think you mean currency, but the bulk of it, and it doesn't matter which, there's approximately 180 currencies in existence right now. The physical part of it will literally become trash that you can burn. We've seen this happen just recently in Venezuela, as well as other places. Lebanon has also suffered from this hyperinflation that is coming. So the currencies will become literally trash. But the bulk of it, probably 80% on a whole, for most of them, doesn't exist. It's already digital. So when they do this revaluing, it's basically nothing, which is why I'm trying to tell people now, get your money out of the banks. Just yesterday, there was a huge issue with Bank of America that they had, whatever they called it, a glitch, whether you want to call it because of hacking, that people were seeing zero balances. Well, I think that was a wonderful thing to happen, because maybe people will realize that can happen at any time and you have zero control over it. So with that being said, I've been talking a long time. They've been saying, oh, well, we had a few banks close, like SVB or whatever. We haven't even begun. All the smaller banks are going out of business eventually, all of them.
And I often tell people that Bank of America is probably going to be the one that's going to really rock the system when that goes down. And most people don't believe that a bank of that size could go under. And I don't think it's a case that it will fail if that bank was earmarked not to fail, it wouldn't fail because they would just keep it on life support and keep pumping the cash in and using the fractional reserve lending that they've done. And as you say, the rights to draw cash from the bigger system. But they want to collapse these banks. And,
Mhm.
you know, I often sit back and wonder what that will look like and what method they will use. Is it likely that we will see an excuse of a cyber attack, or will it be an excuse of a failing financial system, like we saw in 2008, where something from bad loans, subprime loans, and the mortgages and the housing markets at the time, people were so over leveraged within the banking system that it brought it down. But this
Right.
time, I think it's going to be different. I've got a feeling almost that they could use the excuse of a cyber attack and the banks will close on the Friday and we could have a cyber attack of these systems. And again, we know that this would be a false flag event. But one, again, that's a tool in their toolbox. And then Monday morning, when people go to the banks to get the money out, they're going to find that the staff outside can't even get into the bank because the bank isn't opening and they're not going to open again. Very reminiscent of the 1930s, of the Great Depression. Is this what you think would happen, or have they got other tactics that they can use to bring down the banking establishment for their own personal gain?
I think they're going to try and spread it out a little bit more. So I have a thing about Bank of America because we do think there will be some major banks coming down also. Now, JP Morgan, not a chance. They're going to, I would be shocked if they came down. But if you look at Bank of America, what they've got and who owns them, so between Berkshire Hathaway sold a lot of shares, but BlackRock is deeply tied in with them. And when you look at their assets, they're a little bit different. They're tied into a lot of commercial real estate, but it depends. So I don't know if they will be the one to kind of earmark this. I'm kind of looking at Wells Fargo as a sacrificial lamb,
Yeah.
so to speak, that they're going to just kind of cut shut. But regardless of who it is, there is going to be some major banks going down because they don't need them. They're going to keep a couple for the illusion, just like they do with elections, that you got two parties, and there really isn't. Um, I think the banking sector will be similar, but when we watch like Bear Stearns, the Lehman Brothers type of debacle, it'll look probably similar to that with one of the larger ones, but so many smaller ones are going to go first, and they're kind of soaking up the assets right now, is what we're seeing. So as they repackage these loans, re-leverage them, and then they're getting them primed for revaluation, because revaluation will happen one form or another. Now, if they use a cyber attack as the excuse to bring it down,
Yeah.
or hopefully not something larger, hopefully not something physical, you
Yeah.
know, at a main, but that's not off the table. They'll do whatever it takes,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
don't care about the casualties. They've made that very clear, very clear. And again, this banking, it's a global thing. It's very dangerous with what's going on, but just get your money out of the bank, don't wait.
Yeah.
Buy physical silver. There's going to be a link, I imagine. I know Andy Schectman is very, very good about that. So, yeah, just these banks, cut it out before it's an issue. You
Yeah.
know,
That's it. If somebody gets cancer, it's unfortunate, but if people are aware that the precursors of the cancer is there, they can deal with it prior to it spreading right through the body. And right now, this is where we're at. People need to look at their financial situation, what they own, their assets, and protect them in forms that will withstand the storm that's coming and make sure that they can get through that. Now, let's skip to tech stocks and what we're seeing in such a very volatile tech stock market at the moment. There's a very telltale sign that something's shifting and something's moving. And I've seen that the CEOs of Apple itself are actually starting to sell off their stocks. We've seen the likes of Warren Buffett selling off his stocks for certain things. And obviously, we know that he is a big holder of Bank of America, and we have earmarked that as one of the banks that are going to go under. But is there anything telltale with what's happening with Apple now? And is there something that we can follow and see when we see the big players actually selling off their own company stocks? They're not selling them off because they need the money. These guys are
Right.
multi-millionaires. It's not like they need the money. They either smell blood in the water or see an opportunity moving forward. What is it you think they're seeing coming?
Well, they're moving to cash. They see the same thing that we were just discussing, basically. And when this happens, there's going to be a pan sell-off. Of all things, the assets will all take a dip, and they'll take that opportunity at the time to purchase everything on the cheap.
Yeah.
So that'll be what a lot of people are talking about. The largest wealth transfer in history is about to happen. And so you see all of the larger corporations are all moving to cash, all of the ones. There's some hedge funds that they're required to have a certain mix, whatever, for retirement accounts. They're probably the last large players in the market. They'll be the last ones out the door.
Yeah.
And the retailers are going to get absolutely slaughtered. And I think that at this point in time, we're moving to a period where it's very precarious and day by day becomes much more higher risk. The risk is increasing rapidly. And that's why we're watching all of these larger, they're not playing with that. They don't care. If they leave a little bit more, can the markets go higher? Yes, there's probably more in it, but they don't care, like you were saying. They're
Yeah.
pulling it off now and they're being ready for it, going out in their yachts, and they're going to have a day of it and wait, come back, buy everything cheap. That's what they do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're not daft. And the thing is, again, you mentioned the hedge funds there. I mean, the hedge funds themselves, it's not just one thing they invest in. They have a broad spectrum of companies that they will invest in for certain hedge funds. And
Mm.
surely they are at great risk as these companies will start dropping and going down. Um, but again, you said that possibly the last bastion that will go down there will be the hedge funds themselves. Is that because they cover so many different assets in regards to investment, or just because it's a little bit of a safer bet? I don't think anything's really truly safe out there, is it?
I don't think anything's truly safe, especially holding stocks, because they've got their own version of centralized settlement that could go down. And that system is also very precarious. Now, to be clear, I actually think the pensions will be the last out the door and the last to go. And the reason is because if you're an individual retailer, you can buy and sell your stock today, no problem. You don't have to wait. For them, they have to get it cleared. They have to get permission before they move a certain amount of it. They have to declare it. So they move more like a cruise ship. It's a little slower. They have to turn a little bit, and I think that could be their downfall.
Yeah.
So with that, I think they're going to be that we're going to watch a lot of people's 401ks get wiped out for that reason. It will be probably the largest part.
Yeah.
Day traders can, for the most part, avoid this if they are very careful.
And that's it. And again, a telltale sign for me is when I'm seeing obviously massive market manipulation. We're seeing the central banks with their own trading desk pumping billions of dollars into stock markets to keep it propped up. And the fact that we're seeing the stock markets at all-time highs right now, all the investment fund managers are out partying thinking it's a great time. This is exactly what we've seen in 2008, and the markets get pumped to such a high level for a reason. And that reason
Yeah.
is that when the markets crash, everybody that was invested into these markets thinking it was a great time and it's a great pension plan and everything's going to work out fantastic and how rich on paper am I and I'm going to have the best retirement ever. I don't think people realize that they pumped this up deliberately So it's absolutely destructive when it drops down to the very people that are cheering this on at the moment. And, those who are foolish enough to trust it and expect it to serve them well, if they don't see that everything's being manipulated and pushed to such a high level for one purpose and one purpose only, well, they're the fools who are going to suffer. Would you agree with that?
And unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to watch a lot of retail washout. So I'd like to say something if I can, because I know that this is a follow-up question. If you have a 401k, you can't necessarily just pull your money out. You take a large penalty tax-wise. And what I would like to say is that there are IRAs, if you're going to leave your assets with somebody else, that you can hold gold, so to speak, within them. So I urge you to kind of take a look at that, and if at least convert out of stocks like a portion, consider it, look into it. That
Yeah.
you can do that without tax implications.
And that's it. And again, Andy Schectman at Miles Franklin, he is able to convert your IRA right now, your 401ks, into gold or silver, precious metals that they will hold for you. And again, we know this is a trustworthy company. We work with them, we buy from them, and we make sure that we basically recommend probably the very best people out there to make sure that you are in a safe and secure position. Now, there's one thing that I keep hearing about, and this again is we're going to go off on a tangent here. I'm not sure where you have researched and looked into this and what knowledge you have on this, but I've heard about trust funds being built from birth certificates, but I've never found any real evidence in regards to that. What do we know about human registration? And is it likely that the very next moves for digital enslavement will leave humans as traded stock on the exchanges?
That's again back to the tokenization, basically, just to kind of glide over this, because we can get very deep into this.
Yeah.
But everybody that's basically got a social security number, because that was kind of a play on itself. This is just a new version that you can't escape, basically. Is once they do that tokenization, they are going to be trading people for the value, whatever value forward that they have. Yeah, will be traded on the stock market.
Yeah. Now, recently we've seen obviously a lot of new presidents and prime ministers coming around the world, which is very timely to a whole new system emerging for these people to be in control. Well, no, I'm not even going to say these people are in control. These people are puppets for the
Yeah.
very establishment that is in control. And we've discussed about the central banks, Bank of International Settlements being one of the major controlling things in that regards. We're seeing China, BRICS nations stockpiling silver and gold. Is this for them to have the edge on the very increase in prices that we're seeing, or to have a stronghold in the very new world that emerges? What do you think that they are stockpiling precious metals for? It has to be purposeful in its methodology.
Agreed. This goes back a little bit to what they trade in. They trade in something else, and they give local people, the trash currency to trade in. So in the future, they're going to be using this as a tie back to the commodities and trading amongst themselves. Yeah.
You think the very system that they're trying to implement with a central bank digital currency will have to be backed by a commodity such as gold in the future?
Does it have to be? No, the central bank digital currencies will be backed by nothing again. That's just for the common people. The gold is so that the countries can trade with each other amongst themselves. I mean, basically as a resource, just like having the oil. Yeah, they're going to be outside of it.
Yeah. We saw the UK sell off their gold while Gordon Brown was in power. We've seen Canada sell off all their gold. There's nothing there for them anymore. People have been cheering about how wonderful the new Argentinian president is. I mean, the guy looks like an absolute whack job with yeah, and acts actually very similar. He's like a South American Boris Johnson. But the end of the day, Argentina also have sold off their gold. This is not a good sign for that country, is it?
No, and then also indebting their resources. Whenever they indebt their resources, however they do it, because they've done it multiple ways. Yeah, I don't personally, I don't know
Yeah.
why they would do that. And any more than you could tell me why they all seem to have wild hair.
Yeah. I don't know. They say that the crazies, they say that there's if you're a genius, you can be borderline crazy, from genius to psychopath. And I don't know, there's quite a few people out there with crazy hair that seem to fit that bill. Speaking of crazy hair, if Trump is promising that the US will become the crypto capital of the world, should people be investing now? And if so, how do we know which ones to buy?
I like cryptocurrency. Some people don't. I want to have a way that is outside of the system that they're going to have. Basically, it's just an accounting program at the very base of it. I only like Bitcoin because Bitcoin is that one system they can't mess with it. And I get a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, it's from the United States government. It's a Trojan horse." When you look at it really deeply, you can see other things in it. So basically, the funding originally was from the government, but I think it was people that was outside of that. Actually, there's a lot more to it. So I
Yeah,
like Bitcoin. I think it's the only one that is outside of the system. Can it still be manipulated? Yes. We're watching that with the ETFs. So
yeah,
the price of Bitcoin being totally manipulated at the moment, but this is nothing different than what they're doing with gold and silver.
yeah,
Silver specifically, they're creating all of these ETFs, the contracts that they're selling on these markets, and that is suppressing the price. That is an opportunity for us to buy it for less. I see
yeah,
the same thing with Bitcoin right now. It's dropping to 60,000. If it drops below that, could possibly go to 52. That's a buying opportunity
yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah.
So,
And it's funny because I do see Bitcoin, silver, and gold tracking very similar graph patterns when we look at what's happening with the markets, and that can't be a coincidence either. Now let's talk about the MMRI, and for people out there that don't know what this is the Manorino Market Risk Indicator. Our friend Greg Manorino, he puts this out there for free. You can find it on, if you just search up the MMRI on any search engine, you'll find it. And this gives you a good indication of where the market is at. It's a great free tool for people to use. I'm not 100% certain of how it does it, what it uses to calculate such risk. And I'm just wondering if you have any insight onto how this monitors key things to be able to bring us this really good information in regards to letting us know what the market's doing.
right, thank you. So I'm a traditional trader and basically traditional to, and still these days, actually, traditional traders look to a couple of indicators to kind of tell where the market in general is going. The marker of debt that we use, well, there's a spread of notes. We look at the 10-year yield. Now, the 10-year yield tells us a bit about the debt market. And when that yield goes higher, that's them making an offering, trying to get people to purchase it because no one wants the debt at that time. So that in itself is that kind of measure of the risk on the debt. We've got the relative strength of the dollar, which is a measure of the currency, basically versus the euro and some of the Eastern currencies, if you will, the yen. So we're watching some flow trades there. So it takes those two elements into account along with the golden ratio. And what that does is basically, instead of having to look at all these other ones separately, it kind of gives us one key indicator. And it's, while it is the level that it's at, it's not that as important as to watch the movement. The rate of movement is what's important. So while it's edging higher, edging a little lower, as long as it stays relatively calm, it's okay. But if we watch some spikes going on in the markets, immediate flag, immediate.
Yeah.
And it's easy to watch that one spot. That's why I like it. It keeps it, I don't have it's two less graphs. I can have one number up
Yeah.
and it's immediate. So yeah,
No, it is, and it's
hopefully
a
that
really
helps.
good resource for people out there that don't know what's going on in the market. It is a good
Yeah.
indicator for them to follow. Now, recently, Blackstone, and it always makes me laugh with these company names. We've got Blackstone, we've got BlackRock. I always think of the meteorite in the middle of the cube of Mecca when I think of anything involving Blackstone. But Blackstone bought Ancestry.com, but a small price of $4.7 billion. That company provides a service where people can go online, they can send the DNA sample across, and they can find out whether their lineage of the meat suit that they reside in might be Viking, Chinese, English, South American, Eskimo, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's no way that this company can be worth 4.7 billion based on the revenue of people having this service to find out who their ancestors are. Do you think there's a far more nefarious purpose for this company? And certainly the fact that Blackstone have now bought it?
Absolutely. So the problem with this, the business model, as you're saying, completely does not pencil out to that purchase price. And so you have to ask yourself why. But the most critical identity that we can have is our DNA. So with your DNA, you can't change it. And it is basically the most valuable thing out there is your ID, your data, and that is the ultimate. So they have just purchased all of those human beings that are put into that database for that DNA, basically. And
Yeah.
there is so much that can be done with that. It's probably a little bit more to go into, but as they're bioengineering some of these viruses, some of the threats that are going on, whether they talk about, the shots that they put towards them, you could literally, and they've just admitted this by saying, this is how we find this, we're going to tell you where you're from. They could target races. They could target any specific trait feature that they want to. So as far as nefarious, that's about as
Yeah.
hard as it gets. If they find that one group tends to be a little bit more of trouble, if you would say, tend to being a little more free thinking, they could easily eliminate out that group. And then basically people are becoming test cattle, test sheep for this whole
Yeah.
thing that they've got going on, and it's awful. So for that price, I mean, they've just purchased basically the very building blocks of all of these people.
Yeah. My concern with it is, and I'm going back probably about 10 years ago now, on the London Underground, about half a mile past my big tunnel here. HSBC Bank had an advert, and that advert said that your DNA will be your banking identification system. With the push forward towards a one world global currency, is it likely that this DNA and genetic sequence, which, as you say, is unique to every single individual, will be used in conjunction with the very financial system that they want to push forward? That's my concern. Do you think that's a likelihood that this is possibly in link with why Ancestry.com has been bought for such a massive amount, as well as other companies which are no 123 and Me and other stuff? These seem to be falling into the hands of the very corporations that we don't want to own them. Is this something that they're going to mark people with? Could this be, as they call, the mark of the beast, our own DNA? Is what we have as our currency system moving forward, our identity?
I think no, this is not going to be the mark of the beast, because the mark of the beast is still going to have an element of choice to it. However, using it as the identification for this new currency and the new world order, I do believe so. There was a movie back, I think it was early 90s, if I'm correct. It was called Gattaca. I don't know if you were able to see that movie.
Yeah, yeah.
It pretty much lined it out. It has Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke, and basically this was a new society that they had brought forward, and they decided where you would be working in accordance with your genetic, identity. They would tell you where you were going through forward, and they've already got these already kind of lined out. What are your weaknesses? What are your health problems going to be? Are you prone to cancer? And they're not going to put you in these positions if they see these markers. And it seems very dark, but that movie kind of lined out what we're going to do forward. It's going to determine your place in life, where they put you, where you're optimal. It's very dystopian, but yes, I think that is coming.
I know. And if people don't abide by the very rules, we have just seen the unleashing of robot dogs with rifles attached. I mean, I can't say I didn't see that coming, because when I saw the likes of DARPA and Boston Dynamics actually building these dogs, and we saw them kind of rolled out in some parks during the pandemic where they were going around policing people. But I eventually knew that they would become weaponized. What are your thoughts on this happening? Is this just a telltale sign of where they're pushing this? Is this just a way of putting it out there for it to become the norm? Are we going to be walking around policed by robots in the future?
It's very likely because they're going to push that forward as far as, oh, it's safer for the people. We don't need, the police officers. If you watch, there's a lot of stories coming out, whether there's either issues with them or the funding or whatever. And so this would be a very beneficial move, is how they're going to put it, for all. And that's how they can implement that. I mean, it's kind of crazy that they're putting it out looking like dogs, but I kind of like I wanted the one with the flamethrower personally. But yeah,
Maybe
I mean, it's
have ourselves. Yeah, maybe we need to fight fire with fire in regards to that. And, at the end of the day,
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm sure people will come together and tackle whatever these problems are as they present themselves. And as you say, it's like something out of a dystopian Hollywood movie. And the precursors to what have come for so long, I often wonder, is this their way of just saying, well, we did tell you this was coming? It's not that, like, does it get down to a level of karma where they feel they can't be blamed for what they're doing just because you didn't take the initiative to listen to what they've been telling you through the whole movies and media stuff that they pump out there? And I often sit back and consider that that's a possibility. Is there anything today that you think is very key and important that you need to leave us with as a final message to everybody watching today?
Just basically to try and be aware that the most critical thing, I always go back to this, but the most critical thing is those that you're talking to, build community, try to get in with like-minded people now, so that when there's solutions and things that come out, there are ways around it. Stay connected. Stay connected. If you can't go anywhere else, like I said, leave a comment below. We'll get you a link if you want to join in the Discord, but also locally, just your neighbors. Try to get your neighbors. Help a couple of them out. If you can't afford to, put into something like we were saying, paying it forward, just get to know people around you. It's good for so many things. Even if you don't get along with them, that's fine. Pick somebody else to get to know, but at least you know who your neighbor is.
Yeah.
And just that community is huge.
Form your communities, look after one another, pay it forward, get yourself prepared, make sure that you're savvy with what you do with your assets, and make sure that they're going to be withstanding what's coming. Make sure you subscribe to Lava on YouTube. You will forgive me for saying this again, but this is something that you need to watch every morning to really understand what's going on in the world. It will give you so much insight. As I said, just a cup of coffee in the morning. By the time you finished your coffee, you've watched it, And by the time you're heading off to work or whatever it is you're doing, you've got a whole new thought pattern and ideas of what's really going on in the world. And we're only here to give you the truth and try and help you and protect you with what's coming. So once again, thank you for coming on. I did put a meme out today. People may have seen it. So I'm going to say it just because I thought it was kind of fun. I took a photograph of our good friend Rothschild, and I put a quote over that said, "Give a man a gun and he can rob a bank. Give a man a bank and he can rob the world." And that's exactly what we're seeing around us. As always, don't believe what we're saying here. Go out, do your own research. Our slogan here at the Atlantic Underground has always been believe nothing and question everything. And I do expect you to do your due diligence in researching everything we've said today here. And join us again when we come back with lava. This is going to be something that we're going to do on a frequent basis because the conversations are incredible and our information is absolutely valuable to everybody out there. So once again, lava, thank you very much. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. And we'll get this shared out everywhere so people can appreciate the work that you're doing and help everyone else around them. Thanks again.
Chris, thank you kindly. It's always a pleasure. I truly appreciate it. You and all of your work. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the next time.
Oh, always. Thank you and goodbye for now.
Bye.